Alan, the mic's not picking up.
The mic?
Hello, 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 hello.
Um,
Hello, hello, hello,
All right, yeah, okay. Yeah, that was Charlton that turned it off. What we noticed during Delgado's talk is that both of these mics were on at the same time. And I was listening to the stream and getting this like robot echo distortion.
Okay, so we're gonna get started here in just a few minutes. How to detox organically and how to activate your stem cells. All right.
Make sure this is going. Okay, well, welcome to how to activate your master smart cells and how to detox organically, simply, and expeditiously. I'm your speaker today. I'm Dame Lillian Walker. I am a holistic care practitioner. I'm poly-certified, and I repattern the brain from physical and emotional trauma, and I use master cell activation to return the body to a younger, healthier state to repair, restore, and regenerate it. So let's go ahead and get started here, and we are going to be, I want to announce, we happen to be here in this area of the world, and I wanted to share with you, we do have a wait list for an event that I'm going to be having at the end of April. It will be April 27th, that is Saturday, from 6 p.m. from 6 p.m. Saturday night till 8 a.m. It's overnight. You're going to be not only having you learn about stem cell activation, everyone will be patched, and in addition to that, they will be spending the night under the EE scalar system, so you will have an opportunity to not only have your stem cells activated through the patches, but also through the EE scalar system, and there's a few other little surprises. It's going to be $599. There's only 6 spots left for that event. That's going to be in downtown Huntington Beach. So if you're interested, make sure you get in touch with me. In fact, there is a banner somewhere around here in this room that apparently was moved. Let me see if I can locate it, and that way we can, you can get my number. The number, I don't have it on here, but it is 714-865-5626. You can text that number to then get either on the wait list, or if you're one of the 6 people, because there's, like I said, only 6 spots left, then you can join us on that Saturday, the 27th. Okay, moving on, we're going to be talking about stem cell activation. I do apologize, there was a little conversion here in the presentation, so some of the things that were animated are not animated in this version of the presentation. Before we go any further, I want to also make sure that you are completely aware that, we like to cross our T's and dot our I's, pay attention to detail. Not intended to treat, prevent, or cure any disease. We do not heal, cure, treat, or diagnose, nor do we offer any kind of protocols. The suggestions do not replace the advice and diagnosis and treatment by a licensed healthcare professional. That would be your doctor, naturally. We strongly recommend that you consult with your doctor concerning your specific health challenge or treatment that might be required or needed. All right, with that being said, let's move on to the next point here. We are going to, we've had a distinction just in the last several months, since last September, when it comes to crossing our T's and dotting our I's. We have a great relationship with the Food and Drug Administration. They do inspect our facilities every other year, and our patches are made in FDA-registered facilities. But this last fall, they kind of threw a little monkey wrench in our spokes of our wheel, let's say, and they told us that even products that are coming from, that are natural products like ours, because this is just a mechanical device, there's nothing that's being put into the body, and even those that are using natural light, which we're not even using exogenous outside light, we are using your own body's infrared light, they're saying that those will be now regarded as a drug claim. So there are things that we can say, and we can't say any longer as a direct result of that, so we have to kind of be very careful how we use the word stem cell. We can say that these are cell activation patches, not stem cell activation patches, which up until a few months ago, we were at liberty to say that, so we can no longer call these stem cell activation patches, even though we have 90 clinical studies
that were done with double-blind placebo, independent studies that were done in the United States, Europe, as well as Asia. And we have over 120 global patents that actually show that to, in effect, what our technology does. But with that being said, let's move on to bigger and better things. So let's talk about how is this all possible. So we're in 2024. That's 24 years into the 2000, decade, right? Or millennia. You scroll back the hands of time and you go back to 1973. And in 1973, we had this extraordinary human being, in my opinion, called Dr. Lauren Picard. And what did Lauren Picard discover in 1973? Well, he discovered that GHKCU copper peptide activates a third of your previously dormant stem cells. Well, I can only imagine what must have been going through his head when he realized, wow, this actually turns on 33% of your previously dormant stem cells, turning the body to a younger, healthier state, right? Well, that brings us to the question, what are stem cells? Because a lot of people don't really know what stem cells are. So let's talk a little bit about what that is. And if you look at cells versus stem cells are actually pluripotent cells. So what does that mean? Pluri means plural as opposed to singular. Potent is from the word potential. So pluripotent just means that there's many potentials. So when your mother's ovum united with your father's sperm, at conception, you now have complete information to the tune of 23,688 genes and those master smart cells that are there from conception that immediately begin this cellular multiplication to create you and form you in your mother's womb into an embryo. Fast forward 36 to 40 weeks later, you turn into a fetus, and then shortly thereafter, you're a newborn baby. And now you and I, we're going to be taking several trips around the sun, and here we find ourselves at this Biomed Expo, right? Makes sense? And the thing to note is that I want you to think back when you were 25 years old. I don't know about you, but when I was 25 years old, I was barely getting used to the fact that I was in an adult body. And yet at 25, our fibroblasts begin to decline in their production of collagen of the body. And collagen, as you may or may not know, is the #1 building block protein of the body. It's what's required not just for skin, but for all tissue inside and outside of the body. That means all of your organs, because all of your organs are made up of tissue. Does that make sense? Okay, moving on. So the thing to note is at 25, your fibroblasts already are starting to decline in their production of collagen. By the time you reach 30 years of age, you have 50% of your original master smart cells that they simply turn off. Now, let me make this distinction because they don't disappear, they're not damaged, they're not destroyed, they simply go dormant, simply because you've reached the age of 30. They're lying there in wait until you apply a cell activation patch. And if you continue, for every decade of life that you continue to be alive, well, guess what? For every decade that you continue to be alive, you go from 50% of those master smart cells that have turned off to 60 to 70 to 80. When you're 60 years of age, you have 90% of your original master smart cells that have turned off. You have a question?
Yeah, what's the reason it's turned off?
The reason they turn off, aging. It's just part of the normal, natural, biological rhythm to turn off. It's a function of aging. That's the only reason why they turn off, okay? However, you can turn them back on. And we're going to talk how to do that organically and expeditiously here through this talk today. So I want you to think of your body as being equivalent to your home. Just as you have a house or you have a building that you're in, you have things inside the body and you also have things outside of the body. Your human body is like a temporary housing unit, right? And if you look at inside the body, you have those master smart cells that we just talked about, and your master smart cells are just like printer ink cartridges that you have in a copy machine. So when you go to print out color copy, black and white copy, you'll notice and become aware of the fact that when you have 100% of the ink in your ink cartridges, color, black and white, doesn't matter, the copy is an indistinguishable copy of the original. But when you've used up 70, 80, 90% of your ink, Now that copy is a faded version of the original. Does that make sense? Okay. And the same thing is true with your stem cells, with your master smart cells. When you only have 30%, 20%, 10% left because of you've reached the age of 40, 50, 60, 7 years of age and beyond. Once you hit the age of 60, you have 10% of your original master smart cells that will stay there for the remainder of your life until you take your last breath, whether that is at 80, 90, 100, 110, 115, whatever the age is, you only have 10% of your original crew from when you were conceived in your mother's womb. So that brings us to how. How do these patches work? Now, I like to call these patches, it's like med, bed, tech in a patch. This, there's Dr. Stacy Hallweger out of Sarasota, Florida. She's a double PhD. She's an integrative medicine and a functional medicine doctor, and she happens to be one of my partners. And she's the head of our medical group, where we have over 1,000 doctors and holistic care practitioners, and we have about 55,000, give or take a little bit, people who are wearing our pouch technology. And she says, and I quote, that this is the most powerful device on the planet. Now, device, this is not medicine. Again, we're not putting anything into the body. So how does this technology work? This technology works through the use of your own body's infrared light. So I love to tell people that science is the contemporary language of mysticism, because we've known for thousands of years that the Egyptians had used photobiomodulation, that the Incas, the Mayas, the Taoists, the Buddhists, and the Shaolin monks had used photobiomodulation. And I'm sure some of you guys are going, photobiomodulation? What on earth is photobiomodulation? I'm going to tell you what that is in just a second. But they've been using light, knowing that our bodies we are all light beings, not just from a spiritual perspective, but from an actual physical perspective. And because science is the contemporary language of mysticism, science is only 300 years old. In the last 300 years, we now have devices that can actually effectively measure the electricity, the light spectrum that we have inside of our bodies. In fact, here at this Biomed Expo, we have something called a BioWell machine. I use a BioWell machine in my practice, as I also have an AO scanner that scans you head to toe. Both of them are able to measure the joules of energy, whether the joules of energy are below or above normal. You know, there's always a sweet spot. It's just like you can be underweight, or you could be overweight, or you could be in the sweet spot, which is your normal healthy weight and state of being. So getting back to the light aspect, that we are light bodies, I want you to realize and recognize that every human being has about 56 trillion cells in the human body. Of those 56 trillion cells, every single cell and every single molecule inside your body has electrons. And in your blood and in your cerebral spinal fluid, also known as CSF, you have electrolytes. Well, electrolytes and electrons both are just packets of electricity. And that's why if I were to put infrared, night vision goggles, and I were to look at you just like the military and our law enforcement does, you would see that you glow in the dark. And that's how, with night vision goggles, you see people glowing in the dark. And that's because the infrared light is not just contained within your skin walls, you actually emanate this infrared light. No coincidence, but our infrared light spectrum that we have inside of our bodies coincides with that of the sun. The sun is about 42% infrared light. One of the reasons why we need the sun and we feel happy and we are regulated and we create all sorts of nutrients from the sun is because we are infrared light beings, and the sun is 42% infrared light. And we'll talk a little bit more of that in just a moment. But I want you to think about a diamond crystal, because if you look at this patch, you'll see that it's a white dot in the middle. There's the adhesive that goes around. This is an FDA Class 1 medical device. It's about 3 centimeters, just a little bit bigger than a quarter. And in the middle, that white patch isn't just a white patch. Those are crystals that are in the middle. And those crystals are made of organic sugar crystals, organic salt crystals, organic hydrogen, oxygen, and water crystals, and a proprietary blend of organic amino acids. Now, put the pause button on that information, and now I want you to pay attention to this diamond crystal, which we've all seen diamond crystals. We've all seen diamond rings, diamond pendants, right? And if I were to take an imaginary, take a flashlight, and I were to flash it on a diamond crystal, of course you're going to see that all the light that's coming from the source, which is a flashlight, it's going to bounce off of the diamond crystal, and that crystal is going to reflect back like a mirror all the different colors of the prism back to my eyes, right? Same thing is happening with this patch. So that proprietary blend of organic amino acids, hydrogen, oxygen, and water, as well as salt and sugar crystals, those are just mechanical devices that are behaving like a diamond crystal, and it's going to mirror back, reflect back my own body's infrared light wherever it is that I've applied this patch. So I now take this patch, I apply it on my skin like you see here. I got a little boo-boo on my left arm, so what did I do? I patched it because I wanted to repair it as quickly as possible. The moment I apply it on my skin, my own body's infrared light bounces off of this patch, and it reflects back into my body up to 4 inches deep, going through tendons, ligaments, muscle, bone, into the bone marrow, down at the cellular level, immediately regenerating, restoring, replicating, and purging the damaged cell and replacing it with a brand new cell. If I have scar tissue, it'll purge from the body, detox you from the scar tissue, and it'll replace it with the original tissues. So if you have scars, those scars over time will disappear, as in my case, because this person that's standing here before you, believe it or not, I know that the centralized paradigm of medicine says that once you receive brain damage, that you can never repair the brain, that you can't improve from that state of being, that you'll just have to live with that for the rest of your life. But I'm here living proof to show you that, you know what, I was hit by a bus just 3 blocks shy of finishing a 16-mile bike ride on June 17th, 2017, around 3 p.m. And I suffered, the point of impact was lower left side of my head and my back at the same time. I also suffered a neck injury, C5, C6, and my L1, L5, my lower back as well. I had a terrible laceration that went from my ankle to my knee. And I lost all of my short-term memory and developed a laundry list of neurological conditions. And I never thought that I would be on that side of the table. I was the mother of a child who had a neurological disorder. I was a practitioner that repatterned the brain from physical and emotional trauma, had neurological patients, never dreaming that I would become a neurological patient. And I had recovered other people's memory in the past, never thinking that I would lose my memory, but I lost 100% of my short-term memory. And I'm happy to say that I no longer have brain damage. I have recovered not only my short-term memory, but it's better than it's ever been in my entire life. And a whole host of neurological symptoms that I've had, including hair loss, including the scar that I no longer have on, 3 scar revision specialists told me they could do surgery to replace this scar with a lesser scar, but I would have a scar for the rest of my life is what I was told. And as you can clearly see, my legs are not identical. You can see a little discoloration still. It's only been 1.5 years that I've been on the patches. But in the first 4 months, the bone filled in, and that scar went from raised and kind of wiggly to flat, and it shrunk about 20-30% almost immediately in the first 4 months, which I was really kind of surprised. And then over the course of the next following 1.5 years that I wore the patches, it just kept on shrinking and getting lighter. It went from a very dark brown to a lighter brown to a tan to a lighter tan. Before I knew it, it was like dashes of light tan. And I knew that it was just a matter of time before the coloring would all even out. And again, it's not evened out now, because you can see that there is a difference between this leg and my right leg and my left leg. But in time, I don't know how long it'll take, because obviously my body was repairing all sorts of other things that are more critical than that. But the point is that I did experience that reparation, not from the brain down to my legs, which I think is pretty cool. So if you look, like I said, this crystal lattice on this patch is behaving just like a diamond crystal. It is the most powerful technology. It can replace, restore, and regenerate anything you have going on in your body. And so let's talk about phototherapy, because a lot of folks think, well, photobiomodulation, ooh, that's the latest and greatest, which I would agree it is, but they think that it's something brand new that's only in the last few years that has come into existence. And nothing could be further from the truth. The truth of the matter is that phototherapy has been around for well over 100 years. And while phototherapy has been defined as the use of ultraviolet light for its healing effects, these patches have been specifically developed to reflect the light of infrared, near-infrared bands back onto the skin wherever it is that you've placed the patch. As you can see, I've got one here on my arm because of that little boo-boo that I got yesterday. So supported by normal electrodermal skin conductance, the human body gives off a number of particulate releases, biochemical products, gas emission, ultraviolet, near-infrared, and visible spectrum of light. This stimulates that area of the skin, producing improved physiological effects. And this phototherapy and photobiomodulation, the research shows that they haven't been able to document really any negative side effects from the use of infrared light, and so it goes. So let's talk about the first documented use. Now, I want to preface this by saying that I know that 30 years ago, because I started off working in an emergency room, then for a private ambulance company, and back in the day, it used to be that children who were premature babies who were born with immature livers, they were oftentimes jaundiced, and you would see that the white of their eyes were yellowed, which shows that they got jaundice, and also the skin was a bit yellow. So we would put them using photobiomodulation. We would use something called bilirubin lights. So while they're in their little incubators, we would turn on the bilirubin lights. They would just wear patches over their eyes to cover their eyes. And they just wore their little diapers. And every 30 minutes, you flip them over. For the next, some kids need that to be under the bilirubin lights maybe for 1, 2, 3. It could be as much as a month. Some children needed that. Just depends on how premature they were, right? Sometimes even longer. Prior to us having those bilirubin lights, I was told that in the old days, they used to take hospitals where they had children that were jaundiced, and they simply would take those babies and put them near the east-facing windows. They would open the windows where the sunlight would come in through, and so from sunrise until noon, they would simply put them in front of the windows so that they got the natural sunlight, and then they would flip them over every 30 minutes. Basically the same thing as the bilirubin lights. And so we've known for many, many, many years that photobiomodulation, the use of light and the properties that will benefit to regenerate the body, it's very, very effective. And we all know that doctors for years now, for probably 25, 30, 35 years, have been using different types of lasers to do surgery, right? That is photobiomodulation as well. So let's talk about the first documented use of photobiomodulation, which it was in 1895. That's the first, again, science is only 300 years old. And in 1903, the scientist that was first documented using photobiomodulation was Neil Ryberg Finson. And he did a study, and he actually won a Nobel Prize for his research on using red light to treat tuberculosis of the skin. And he found in his experiments with mice that those mice that were exposed to that light therapy were basically, not only were their symptoms reduced, but their mortality rate went down. And he had a personal vested interest in doing this type of research because he himself suffered from lupus vulgaris. And he won a Nobel Prize. Think about that. That was in 1903. Well over 100 years ago, right? Because we're in 2024 now. So I want you to notice that these patches, again, the patches are made in FDA-registered facilities. They're non-transdermal. So what does non-transdermal mean? That means that nothing transfers into the skin, because dermis is the skin. Just yesterday, I had somebody who was telling me that they use testosterone patches, and they use also special patches for smoke cessation. Those are transdermal patches, because the patches that they're using actually have some sort of chemical in the patch, either testosterone or whatever the agent is that they're using for smoke cessation, that has some sort of drug that's actually being absorbed by the skin, through the skin, right? So it's crossing that skin barrier into the body. These crystals, although organic, sugar, salt, hydrogen, oxygen, water, and organic amino acids, these are not being absorbed by the skin. Those are mirrors to reflect back your infrared light. And Then it reflects back, like I said, 4 inches deep, and it begins immediately. The moment it touches your skin, this rapid cellular repair and replication of taking care of whatever damaged cells you have and replacing them with brand new ones. So these patches are also non-invasive. Again, nothing invades the skin. It's not like an injection or something that you're taking orally that you're bringing into your body. They're holistic FDA compliant Class 1 medical devices under the general wellness category, and we do manufacture these in FDA registered facilities in the United States as well as in Europe. In Europe, they're registered with the Irish Medicine Board. They're ISO 9001 and 13485 compliant. We actually have 15 distribution centers throughout the world to serve 82 countries. Okay, super important. If you take nothing away from this talk, please, 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 please. You can do whatever you want. You don't have to do anything that I suggest, but I would really highly recommend that you do increase your water intake to make sure that you're drinking at least 50% your weight in fluid ounces of water, because that is the bedrock, the cornerstone, the hallmark of good health. In order just to maintain health, you need to be drinking 50% your weight in fluid ounces of water, not all at the same time. Think of it as like rain. You want to be raining on your body water intake from the time you wake up in the morning until you go to sleep. How many of you, by a show of hands here, how many of you have heard of people who say, I would love to do whatever I can to increase my metabolism? Because they want to have a faster, yeah. So most of you are raising up your hands because you want a faster, more efficient metabolism. You don't want to gain any extra pounds, by whatever reason. Well, did you know that if you just, when you first wake up in the morning, before you go to the bathroom and do anything, but as you sit up in your bed, if you were to drink room temperature water immediately to just until you're satisfied, you don't have to drink 10, 12, 16, 20 ounces. You just drink enough until you're satisfied. Did you know that that act alone increases your metabolism? Imagine that. Does that cost you a whole lot of bucks? No. But just that simple act of breaking the fast from having hydrated from the prior day, from having eaten anything the prior day before you went to sleep, if you wake up, when you wake up, you reach over, you get that room temperature water, and you start to drink just until you're satisfied. Now you go to the bathroom, brush your teeth, wash your face, go to the bathroom, take a shower. By the time all that process is done, guess what? You're probably going to have to drink some more water. And you're probably going to go to the bathroom about 30 minutes later because you have just broken that fast cycle from the night before. So now you drink a little bit more water just until you're satisfied, and now you go off and do breakfast, and whatever it is. Some people have breakfast, not all people do. But if you do have breakfast, you just go ahead and move on your merry day. So a 150-pound person, man or woman, doesn't matter. That means that they would be, their formula for knowing what their water intake should be would be 75 ounces of water from the time they wake up until they go to sleep at night. So what does that look like? 75 ounces? Well, in America, we've got those, like, this is not a paid endorsement or anything, but everyone's familiar with an Arrowhead or Aquafina or a Sparkletts water bottle. They're about 15.9 ounces. So 5 of those a day is 75 ounces. And I'm sure you would agree that having one in the morning when you first get up, or that measurement of water, and having one in late morning, one early afternoon, one late afternoon, and then one before you go to bed after dinner, that's 5 bottles of water for somebody who's about 150 pounds. Very reasonable, very easy to do, okay? That's 2.2 liters of water for those of you who use the metric system instead of ounces like we do here in America. So I cannot begin to emphasize to you how important this is, because when we talked about at conception how we had 23,688 genes and master smart cells called stem cells to form you in your mother's womb, I want you to become aware and realize and recognize that those genes are 92% water. So the primary component and structure that holds up your genes tall, erect, and stable so that they work properly, so that they have that figure 8 helix structure is water. 92% water composition, 8% other. When you become dehydrated, all sorts of things in the body start to shrink. One of the things that start to be compromised is obviously your DNA structure, because you're pulling water from all sorts of different places, and at the foundation, your genes are at the foundation, right? Your brain is very hydrophilic, very water-loving. And when you are 2% dehydrated, you will start to feel thirst in your mouth. Now check out what happens when you're 8% dehydrated. And I think a lot of you might be really aghast when you find out what happens. So here's a slide. And on the left, this person is a properly hydrated individual. And you will notice that they've got the proper helix structure. It's got the figure 8. It's like the ladder that's twisting. It's got that vortex because we have a negative and a positive charge to our DNA. They're properly hydrated. However, when you reach 8% dehydration, look what happens to your DNA. It begins to unravel. It literally starts to fall apart at 8% dehydration. Not to mention, your brain has shrunk at 8% dehydration because your brain, like I said before, is very, very hydrophilic. It's supposed to be in a pool of cerebral spinal fluid inside of your skull. At 10%, you lose your mind. Your brain cannot think thoughts, it cannot work properly. And no one can survive 12% dehydration. The moment you hit 12% dehydration, you're dead. Game over. Inside your body, nothing can move. Your blood is too thick. It's the end of your story. So, let's talk about how long, you're going to be wearing these patches. Our bodies are on about a 24-hour cycle every day. We have the sympathetic nervous system, which is from sunrise to sunset. That is when you are awake and alert, happy. And then you have from sunset to sunrise, kind of in this, it's basically Bluetooth and in sync with the rhythm of the sun, because you have sunrise to sunset. Those are your day hours, your sympathetic nervous system, and then you have from sunset to sunrise. That is your parasympathetic rest and digest system. So you're going to be wearing the patches first thing in the morning. After you get up, you're going to apply the patches. Let's say you're wearing them from 9 a.m. to 9 p.m. at night. At 9 p.m. at night, what you're going to do is you're going to have an alarm that goes off that says, remove patches, because if you don't set an alarm, you're not going to remember. You're going to forget because you can't feel them. You remove the patches, and now you're honoring the rest and digest cycle, because for 12 hours straight, you basically had the equivalent of 43% additional construction workers that are working on your body. So let's, a 30-year-old has 50% of their stem cells. So when they put the patches on, now they have 83 to 90% of their master smart cells that are doing this rapid reparation in their body. If you're 60 on up, you only have 10% of your master smart cells left. You put the patch on, and now you have 43 to 50%. You're basically at the same cellular level as a 35-year-old. Notice how people tend to progressively age much quicker after the age of 60 than they do 30 to 60 years of age. And that's because, again, you only have 10% of those master smart cells that are available until, that is, you apply one of these cell activation patches. And now, another way of thinking about this is like, okay, the visual I'd love to give you, just play pretend and make believe that you're hiring a contractor to come to your home, and you're like, okay, contractor A, I want to replace the flooring, I want to take this down to the studs, we're going to do new drywall on the walls, new ceilings, new lighting, we're going to remodel the kitchen, the bathroom, the plumbing, we're going to take it all down on the inside. On the outside, we're going to do new siding, we're going to do new roof, we're going to do new landscaping, hardscaping, the works. And contractor A says, fantastic, I got 10 guys that will have in your home every day working for 12 hours, and it's going to take 7 years for us to replace, restore, and regenerate everything here in your house so you have a full remodeling job. You're like, okay, contractor A, this is going to be the cost, it's going to take 7 years, but at least I'll have a whole brand new house in 7 years. Contractor B is the better contractor, and he's going to show up and he's going to go, okay, let me see. Same job, it will take a year and a half to replace everything, to do this full remodel job. I'm going to be 43 guys. Instead of 10 guys, I'll have 43 guys on the job. So for 12 hours every day, you have 43 guys or more that are going to be doing this entire job that will replace, restore, and regenerate your entire house inside and out. And that's what the stem cell activation patches do. That's what these cell activation patches, which are master smart cells that know how to triage, they know how to prioritize. If you break your toe, but you have a heart problem, diagnosed or undiagnosed, these guys are smart enough to know, it's like, wait a minute, there's something going on in that heart. We're going to send the lion's share of the energy to replace whatever it is that's going on in the heart. Replace those cells first. And yeah, they'll take care of that broken toe, but there's going to be a greater amount of energy that will go to the heart, to the liver, to the brain. Those organs that are vital for you staying alive, they're going to get precedence because your smart cells are intelligent. They know what's primary, what is the most important to keep you alive, secondary, tertiary, and so on and so forth. Does that make sense? Okay. So I think you're crystal clear about wearing these 12 hours a day without being on cellular activation patches. The human body, like contractor B, it takes 7 years for the 56 trillion cells in your body to turn over. Usually, without patching, you have about 2 billion cells that turn over every day. That's just the normal human body. But when you're on the cellular activation, and now you have 33% additional, master smart cells that have been turned on. They're not somebody else's cells. They're your original cells. We're literally turning more of you on. So now you have that additional cellular repair and activation. So then things happen much, much faster. What would normally take 7 years, you can get done in about a year, year and a half. Does that make sense? Okay. So this is a gal who had scoliosis. Again, we don't make any medical claims, but people report back to us. They come to us with a condition, sometimes many different conditions, and then they report back to us on a regular basis what the status is, what the improvement is, things that disappear and no longer are there. As an FYI, you know that the disclaimer says we do not treat, cure, heal, diagnose, nor do we offer any protocols. Okay? These are general wellness products. We do advise you or recommend where and how, which patch and where to put it, especially on traditional Chinese medicine acupuncture points. And again, these are not for a condition, but because these are your master smart cells, whatever it is that you have that's ails you, if you've had any kind of trauma or accident, like in my case, I was not sick, but heaven knows, when you have brain damage as I did, and I had the level of injury that I did, I had a lot of things that needed really serious repair, and it dysregulated all the different systems of the body, because when your brain is offline from a brain injury, it's kind of like having a computer where you disconnect the internet. You can't upload or download information. Go ahead.
I just want to clarify a point. You say at age 60, there's 10% of stem cell left. And then the patches, it could go to 43 to 50%. That's almost like 300% more, not 33%.
It's 33% more. So you have, by the time you're 60, you have 10% left of the 100%.
So it's 10 plus 33%.
Yeah. So by the time, of the 23,688 master smart cell stem cells that you had at birth, or not birth, I'm going to go back to prior to birth, at conception.
Mm-hmm.
So by the time you're 60, of those 23,688, you have 4,192 left. That's only 10% of the 23,688.
And
until
age,
you apply, 60 and up, and that 10% is what's going to carry you for the remainder, whatever your lifespan is, whether it's to 80, 90, 100, 110, 115, 120, doesn't matter. That's going to carry you for the remainder of your life until you activate your original master.
So at age 50, how many percent left?
You can hear.
I said around age 50, how many percent of stem cell left, and how would the patch help?
Okay, so that's a great question. So when you're about 50 years of age, if I had to guess, I would say you probably have, instead of 10% left, you probably have around 20%, 20, maybe a little less, a little more, but it's going to be in the 20% range. Because for every decade of life after age 30, you go from 50% that have turned off and 50 that remain. You're 40 years of age, now you have 40%, 30%, 20%. So by the time you're 60, it's a progression from age 30 to 60 that you have, and there's environmental factors. It's pretty much all environmental factors that are going to determine how quickly more and more of those turn off, more than anything else. And we know that based on the work, not just tons of scientific research to point to this, but the work of Dr. Bruce Lipton, where he talks about epigenetics and how we can upregulate and downregulate genetic expression through environmental factors.
So for age 50, it would be 20% plus 33%, about 53%.
Yeah, so you're gonna have about 53%, yes, of those now stem cells instead of just 10% or 20, exactly. So that's gonna increase your cellular repair. So for this young lady who had a terrible back pain, she also had scoliosis of the spine, so she had a very significant curvature of the spine since she was a teenager. You can clearly see that her left shoulder is much higher than her right shoulder. You can see that her shoulder blades are protruding in the back. You can clearly see that she has a cinched waist on the right, but not so much on the left. You can see the lack of symmetry in her posture. And after just 4 short weeks of wearing the cell activation patches, and also wearing, we have a patch that, we have 11 patches total. Today I'm talking to you about the mother cell activation patch. We also have one of the 11 is the only patch we have that doesn't repair anything, but it turns off your pain receptors so that while you're having things repaired inside of your body, it's getting replaced with the original blueprint. You have the relief from pain by turning off the pain receptors. So you can see here on the right-hand side, just 4 weeks later, you see how much straighter her spine is. You see that her right and left shoulder are almost balanced. You can also see that her shoulder blades are no longer sticking out the way they used to. And she now has a nice hourglass figure where the left and the right waist are more symmetrical. The next person we have here, whoops, this bounced over. Next person we have here is the gentleman who had a dysregulation of melatonin in the skin. And this is what we can see is, of course, the more obvious, of course, the dysregulation that's in the skin. But melatonin, as you may or may not be aware, not only gives your skin color, gives your hair color, gives your eye color, but melatonin is the master antioxidant that's responsible for the detoxification of all metals in the body. Super important master antioxidant. It's also what's responsible for, melatonin puts you to sleep. Serotonin wakes you up. Some people mistakenly think that taking a melatonin supplement is going to help them in sleeping, and what they don't realize is that it's very dangerous to take exogenous melatonin into the body. Why? Because your body, recognizing that it's not your original melatonin, it sees that as a foreign substance that's trying to increase your melatonin, and what it does is it pulls melanocytes and melanopsites from your brain. So melanopsin from the brain and melanocytes from your eye. And over time, it creates a weakness or a compromise within the eye, and many people end up with retinal tears when they've had an extended use of melatonin. So for those of you who are looking to maybe see what research and evidence is there that talks about the compromise that you take when you start taking an oral supplementation of melatonin, I would guide you to my mentor, Dr. Jack Kruse. Dr. Jack Kruse is a photobiomodulation quantum neurosurgeon. He does brain surgery, neck surgery, spine surgery. And also there's Dr. Jacob Montgomery, who is an ophthalmologist. He's an eye surgeon. And they both talk about this phenomenon where people think that by taking melatonin that it's going to improve their sleep. But the consequence, it's actually a very dangerous thing to do. And I currently have 2 patients that when they came to me, they were blind. One of them, when he came to me, he came with a retinal tear. He had had surgery for the retinal tear. And when he had the surgery, the ophthalmologist had told him, it's like, oops, the surgery didn't really quite work out. He was partially blind before he had the surgery. Once he had the surgery, he was completely blind. And then his sister, who is a nurse, said, don't go back and get another surgery. She's like, you need to start on cell activation patches, because she was on cell activation patches and was having incredible results herself. So we started him last August on cell activation patches. And before October, he already had blurry vision instead of being completely blind. So the moral of the story is you want to activate your own original melatonin levels. You don't want to take an oral supplementation or exogenous melatonin. You don't know what the source of that melatonin is, and you don't want to put your brain and your eye in compromise. Does that make sense? Okay. Next slide. Here we have Captain McCarthy, and Captain McCarthy.
Hi.
She had.
We have a next speaker coming up.
Yes, you do, but you have to wait for the AV guy to wrap it up. I started 15 minutes late because the previous person was 15 minutes late as well, so all in good order. So Kathy McCarthy, she had an autoimmune disorder, and she also suffered from 33 years of having breast implants. And because she had traveled all over the country looking for experts that would help her relieve her current state of being, she was actually very open and receptive to starting on these patches, but she was also kind of cynical, going, that little sticker looks like a little Band-Aid. How could that possibly do what all these experts haven't been able to do? Long story short, she decided to give it a go because she had spent a lot of money without having the success and relief that she had looked for in the past. So if you look at this slide, you can't tell the autoimmune disorder, but you can listen to my YouTube interview that I did on Love and Money Secrets TV, and you can see that she not only matches these slides, but what you can evidence is the cellular repair that's also evidencing the cellular repair on the inside of the body, because you only have wrinkles because you have oxidative stress in the body. Where you have oxidative stress, you also have inflammation. As far as your stem cells are concerned, where there is oxidative stress, where there's inflammation, they're going to go do cellular repair. So you'll see here on the top left how she had a lot of deep lines and wrinkles. 3 months later, there was a significant lessening of that. 6 months after she started, she has no wrinkles now. You can see how her skin is much more moisturized, no wrinkles, and just a little bit of lines. And 7 months later, no fine lines and wrinkles. Now, the best part of the story is not the rejuvenating effect, because she definitely looks like she's 35, 40 years old. She does not look like she's a 64-year-old. She does not look like a 64-year-old. The best part of the story is that all of her autoimmune disorder symptoms, all of them disappeared. That, and her energy level, of course, is way up.
How long did it take?
It took 7 months. She's still on the patches to this day. That's been a couple years, because she just started, if you see there, it says January of 2022 is when she started on the patches, and she's still on the patches to this day. You look at her on my YouTube, yeah. When the AB guy comes, I had to wait when Nick Delgado was on here before, so it's basically the same thing.
We push it 15
So-
minutes later.
Yes, it's about 15, 20 minutes later. Okay. So, and here's my story. For those of you who might be interested, I'm not going to get into a lot of detail here. You could see that I had a lot of things that were wrong after I got hit by a bus and suffered brain damage, neck injury, back injury, leg injury, whole host of neurological problems. I lost 50% of my hair. I also dropped 10 pounds that I couldn't afford to drop. The patches are designed to bring you into homeostasis, into balance, okay? So the problem of being underweight is the same problem as being overweight. So there's some sort of dysregulation in your body that is causing that disbalance. No matter how hard I tried to gain the weight that I could not afford to lose, I doubled up on protein, and I'm about healthy organic eating, and after 1 month of upping everything to increase my weight, I gained 0 pounds, which is equally as frustrating for someone who's on the opposite end of the spectrum, who's gained weight, and they're cutting calories, they're doing exercise, and they lose 0 pounds. It's very demoralizing, but both are reflective of a disbalance inside the human body. Now, I didn't have to change anything in my diet. I was already eating an organic, healthy diet, not necessarily a vegetarian or a vegan, but high vegetable count and so forth, fish, yada yada. Don't really eat a lot of red meat, don't eat any pork, etc. And guess what? My body went into homeostasis within the 3rd or 4th week, the first month of my being on the patches. I got my short-term memory back. I had already recovered.
3 months?
Between the 3rd and the 4th week, I got my short-term memory back, where it was significantly better. What I noticed was that I didn't have to effort. There was no effort in my remembering, recalling, or having to recite something. And what happened was, as I was using these patches with my patients, I was making my way reading through all 90 independent research studies. And when I came to the one paper by Tang, Veritas Medicine, it was on the pain management patch called Ice Weight. It's the only patch we have that does not repair, it just turns off your pain receptors. And it had, the first thing that caught my attention was that it had 4 great keywords, and I thought, oh my gosh, I have to use this languaging with everyone I talk about these patches to, because it was organic nanotechnology, photobiomodulation, and acupuncture points. I go, this is great. It's very clear and concise. People can understand that. And then when I looked at the abstract, for those who read lots of research papers, you know that those research papers can be 2 pages long, they can be 50 pages long. And some of them are very well written, the abstracts, and others are not so much. It's just like anything else, right? There are good books and there are not so good books. But this particular abstract, the languaging was very clear and concise, and it said that the ice wave, organic nanotechnology, photobiomodulation patches applied on traditional Chinese medicine acupuncture points create a significant effect in the reduction of pain anywhere from 50 to 100% within 3 to 4 minutes on all of the subjects in the study. And I thought, wow. I'm like, I gotta memorize this, I gotta learn this, I gotta commit this to memory so that I can recite this and repeat this to other people. This is phenomenal. So prior to my being on the patches, I had to print, in that particular case, I had already printed that paper out. So I knew I was gonna have to highlight it, I was gonna have to outline it on a piece of paper and write it out, and I was gonna have to write 3x5 cards, 3, 5, 7 times, and I was gonna have to repeat it out loud in order to commit it to memory. Not this time though. So I usually do my research paper reading in the morning. So in the afternoon, I'm on telemedicine Zoom calls with people all afternoon. Somebody had an issue with pain, they asked the question. And again, my intention was to later on, go back to start to learn, memorize, and recite that information. And out of my mouth, after one time reading, I was able to recite what I just told you. And in that moment, I realized, oh my gosh, my short-term memory is as good as it was when I was pre-med at USC. And no sooner had I had that thought that I had a memory of being in kindergarten, November of my kindergarten year, I remembered, oh, wait a minute. I had eye surgery when I was 5 years old. It was November. I spent a week in the hospital. My eyes were patched because they don't, after they do surgery, they don't want me to move my eyes because there's stitches in my eyes. And I realized, oh my gosh, my memory is better than it ever has been in my entire life because I was 5 years old and I had that eye surgery. That was my first traumatic brain injury because I had general anesthetics in order to do that surgery. And what most people here are unaware of, and this is something that I did disclose in a film documentary that we did we released it during the pandemic. You can find it on Netflix called Quiet Explosions, Healing the Brain. Because again, I told you, I specialize in repatterning the brain from physical and emotional trauma. And we disclosed and shared and educated with people that every time you are subjected under general anesthetics, that you suffer inadvertently a traumatic brain injury. Because there's 4 things an anesthesiologist does to you in order to put you under. General anesthetics, that's basically a medically induced coma that's controlled in a controlled environment for your benefit because there's no other way really that they can do that surgery without having you, it's what's required, right? The 4 things that an anesthesiologist does, and one of my partners is formerly an anesthesiologist, he's a regenerative medicine doctor, Dr. Gallen, but they'll concur. 4 things an anesthesiologist does. Number 1, they do amnesia. They wipe out your memory so that you don't recall that event. Number 2, hypnosis. Number 3, analgesia. They turn off your pain receptors. And number 4, paralysis. They have to paralyze your body so that the surgeon can do the precise work that they're going to do without you hiccuping, coughing, flinching. You can't move at all because they're doing very precise work while they're cutting you. As they cut you in the body, of course, your brain and your body keep score. We don't want you to suffer something called an abreaction, which is basically PTSD because of that surgery. So it's best for you to not have any memory in the brain and in the body. However, in order for that general anesthetics to take place, they have to lower your pulse, your heart rate, your blood pressure, your brain waves. And by lowering those, you deprive the brain of oxygen. For every hour that you're under general anesthetics, you suffer a more severe traumatic brain injury. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
If you're curious or want to learn more about this, you can check out, there's Dr. Cave on YouTube. He's a Stanford and Harvard trained anesthesiologist.
Could you spell Kevin?
Cave, K-A-V-E-H. He's Harvard and Stanford trained. He's also a PhD in integrative medicine. He's got great education, and he shares and teaches about this too. All right. This is Gail Henry, one of our patients who, she had a severe curvature of the spine, so much so that she had a fold of flesh on the left-hand side of her back. In less than 2 months, you can see that the fold of flesh is gone, The spine is not perfectly straight, but it's definitely much straighter. All of her pain was gone after 2 months. She continues to wear the patches too because she keeps on getting a rejuvenated effect and she feels fantastic with her energy flow. So we're just about done here, and for those of you who want to know the short story to what these patches do, the mother cell activation patch activates a third of your previously dormant master smart cells, and it repairs whatever's damaged and restores everything from your blueprint at conception prior to birth, okay? The long answer, for those of us who are more neuro nerds who like to have more specifics, these are the bullet points, which for those of you who would like me to text you these bullet points, just let me know. You can call the number that's on the banner at the entrance here, or I can give you my number, 714-865-5626, and we'll send you these bullet points, and I'll also send you our educational site. There's nothing for you to buy on the educational site. It will have not only bullet points, but it'll have a 2-minute, a 3-minute video, an 18-minute video, and also it will have all 90 clinical studies as well as our 120 global patents. Before you leave, I have a little present for everyone here. Be careful when you open this, because if you are one of the lucky ones that has a little key inside here, then that means that you're going to get an additional gift from me. But you have to text a picture of the key to my cell phone, and then I'll know that I owe you that gift, okay? So these are the bullet points. We already talked about the resetting of a third of your genes to a younger, healthier state. It regenerates cells by replacing it with undamaged cells, right? Restores collagen. Collagen is the building block protein of the body. Rebuilds scar tissue, replacing damaged scarred tissue with the original tissue. Reduces fine lines and wrinkles, increases energy, increases sexual libido. I'll answer your question in just a moment. Antioxidants, anti-aging, anti-inflammation. You'll get pain relief anywhere from 50 to 100% within 3 to 4 minutes. Get improved hair growth, improved deeper, sounder sleep. This patch alone will also increase your glutathione levels by 30%, which glutathione is what's responsible for your immune system and detoxification of the body. Yes, your question. Let me hold the mic so we can hear you.
You mentioned about teeth. 2 things. One is like if people lose the teeth, would it regenerate? Second thing is if there's a crack on the teeth, how would that do any repair?
Okay, so these are general wellness products. So this is going to repair and restore anything and everything in the body. And it just takes time. Nerves are the most complex structures usually in the body to repair. Bones regenerate, they don't heal. That's another discussion. We don't have time to get into that today. But anybody else who would have any other questions, I want to make sure that I answer anything and all that you might have. So just take my number down. Make sure you get the gift. I want to be respectful of the next speaker because I think at this time, we're pretty much close to the top of the hour. So.
What's the location of where you want to put the patch?
So that's a fantastic question. So all 90 clinical studies, we used 2 acupuncture points. My favorite is is governing vessel 14, which if you touch, you take your dominant hand and you touch the back of your neck, the base of your neck, the top of your spine, that's governing vessel 14. That's where your brainstem goes down into your spinal column, and it signals your autonomic nervous system through your spinal cord. The second point is below your belly button. There are people who, for whatever reason, they've got rotator cuff issues, they've got things going on that they can't reach their neck. We use then 3 inches below the belly button. Conception vessel 6 is responsible for anything related to your reproductive organs, your endocrine system, and your digestive system. Okay? Okay, we are going to, I want to share with you guys the...
I'd like to see if the next speaker, which is me, can go on stage now.
Okay, it's startx39now.com. That is the educational site.
Please.
Mm-hmm.
You're blocking my video.
Okay, and you can't see that number here on the last one, but
Sorry,
that is
sir,
my
you are
YouTube channel.
blocking my
If you
video.
would like to go to DameLillianWalker.com, I have plenty of free educational resources there. I interview a lot of other scientists and doctors and holistic care practitioners. I want to thank you for your time and your attention today, and let me make sure that you guys get your gifts here today. All right, ciao for now, my friends and gems.
Thank you.
What? I know.
I've seen her. The same thing. Oh, it's different? It's different. You want this one? Oh,
It's 39, I have these. Okay.
are you sure?
Yeah, because I have these.
So the expert, yeah, so, the X29 is a daughter stem cell activation pad, so today I was talking about the master, the X39, which is the mother cell activation pad. But that other patch,
This is, what?
so this is just, if you see in there, it has, again, you have to, I don't know if you have a key in yours, but it gives you a little bit of information about the patches. And then if you wanna come and have an exhibit here in the room, you can come to it. Nobody got patches in there, everybody got information.
Oh,
and
just
attention.
the envelope.
It's, yeah, you're not getting your patches in there.
I already have 39 at home because I buy them.
Yeah,
But,
okay.
Yeah. I'm familiar.
Oh, so it's just the envelope then?
So there's a key, if you have a key, there's $499 worth of value, if you have the key. If you don't have the key, then you don't have it. But it's telling you what to expect, it's information you need to have. You're welcome.
You know, the booth gets a while inside.